Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Statford Bridge, Chelsea by the numbers. And boy, do we have some fun numbers to talk about. Chelsea win 3-0 at home to Barcelona right after beating Burnley 2-0 on the weekend. And before we talk about the game and some of the interesting things that Chelsea did tactically and the data and so on, I have been fairly critical of Stamford Bridge as an environment, and I have been fairly critical of Chelsea's performances in big matches. And, you know, there's obviously some things you have to take into account with the red card, and it's a Champions League night under the lights against one of the biggest clubs in the world. But, like, my goodness, what an atmosphere that was. Absolute limbs the whole game. Super loud, super fun, really positive, really aggressive. Even after Barcelona get an early chance, like, it didn't really waver at all. Really, really, really fun. And I've said this on stream a few times, but what a privilege to watch a team you really care about in really big, meaningful matches against some of the best teams in the world. I'm not Mark Cucurella's biggest fan. It is extremely fun to watch him wrestle Lamine Yamal's jimmies the whole game. And I'll put my hand up. I thought Wesley Fofana was toast. I thought his hamstrings were gone. His knees were gone. He couldn't run. He makes a huge amount of money. He's been mustard. So let's get those out of the way. In terms of the game, and we'll talk about Barcelona, and then we'll talk a teeny bit about Burnley, because there's not that much fun to talk about there beyond Chelsea were quite good, is the team is exactly the team that I thought it would be, with the exception of Neto as the 9 instead of João Pedro. Why? Two reasons. One, Chalobah Fofana has worked extremely well as a center back pairing. They're very, very complementary. Fofana wants to go run and blow things up. His recovery pace into the channel is very good. He is a very aggressive center back who, in the dog-cat dichotomy, he is a dog. He is an attack dog who just wants to run and blow things up. Chalobah is much more cautious. He can step into midfield. He can cover him behind, all those things, but he's a little bit more refined. If Chalobah was white, the way he would be described would be very similar to the way people talk about, like, a Fabio Cannavaro, I think, is maybe a decent stylistic comp, or one of the Barcelona center backs. Like, he is a very refined player. Very physically talented, but very refined. And I think they work together very similarly as a pair. Cannavaro is a pretty wild comp, so don't hold me up on that. But you know what I mean. And they fit together very, very well as a pair. Fullbacks make sense. I think we were always going to see a midfield three of three midfielders, even if one of those midfielders is Reece James. Reece James, another excellent performance in midfield. Malo Gusto, when he plays right back, is very, very able to stretch the pitch. And I think particularly with the way Barcelona play with an extremely high line, this was not shocking. Midfield 3 is midfield 3. Enzo Fernandez as the 10 has been the thing in big games. Garnacho, very adept runner in behind, but also a reasonably good passer, significantly better passer than Jamie Gittins. And Estev is the right winger, no-brainer, given he can both stretch the line and is a very good passer receiving to feet. And then you have Neto as the 9 to stretch. This is an interesting one. I thought it would be João Pedro, much more to be the option to feet and let others run beyond. But I think Neto, it ends up being actually a really good call. And one of the things I want to point out is if you look at Dimitri's passing networks and pass maps, you can see a really, really interesting thing. And that is that Neto as the 9 is somewhat withdrawn compared to the wingers. And so, like, what does that tell you? That means his average touch location is deeper than that of the wingers. Why is that? Well, you have a lot of Neto showing feet to draw the line high, and then you have the wingers go beyond. But as you can see from one of the big chances that Chelsea gets, which is kind of this little bubble here that you can see, he also is able to stretch and get chances for himself. The first goal is an own goal, but is his arrival in the penalty area. And I thought he had a very, very good looking game as a 9. And I'm going to say the same thing that I've said like over and over and over again. CFC Central said Neto is a legitimate number 9 option. And some of the minutes he has played there for Chelsea, I think he's looked quite good. And I thought once again he looked quite good in this game. Again, creating a big chance for the goal, or getting the shot for the goal, and then a couple decent moments in transition that I thought he looked really, really good. And so that was the team. And in terms of the game, it's important to know. So just kind of headline numbers. Opta have it 1.9 to 0.8. Dimitri has it 2.2 to 0.6. Mark Arstadts has it 2 to 0.4. I think they're all in vaguely the realm of low 2s, high 1s to something like a half to 2/3 of an expected goal in that realm. And I think that accurately reflects the game. I think what is weird about it is that, and I feel this way, I spoke about this with John McKenzie at the beginning of the year, where our perception of the chances when you have a team who plays an offside trap is very different than the number that ends up on the XG total, where Chelsea, for example, with their penalty area offside trap, end up getting caught for chances in the penalty area, and you watch and you say to yourself, oh my goodness, they had these 5 huge chances, and actually all 5 of them were offside, and it doesn't matter. Chelsea scored 6 goals in this game, 3 of which were disallowed for offside. And then 2 of their goals that they scored were maybe offside and then get called back on. So it's something to keep in mind, that the perception of that is very different. But I think there are worlds, when you think about the XG maps here, there were definitely worlds where Chelsea hold their run 1 inch, or Chalobah does not get involved, or Fofana doesn't hit his chest and his arm, it just hits his chest, that you look at, and all of a sudden this is a north of 3 XG game. The other thing that I think is important to note, when you look at something like the momentum chart from McClockbot, there's a tremendous amount of value in the second half, but Chelsea definitely took their time to go through the gears and just zero risk in the second half. The second they got the second goal, Barca got nothing. It was no touches, no chances, no box entries. Opta have it 1.9 to 0.8. In the second half, it's 0.9 to 0.06, and Barca get very, very, very little in the second half. And I thought there was a maturity to that performance that I thought was fairly surprising. And, it was a very, very good performance. It was very much in the vein of the PSG game, a very similar setup. Barcelona with their offside trap, it's a fairly unique opponent. You're not going to be able to play that way against everyone. But I thought Chelsea managed it pretty well. And I have been fairly critical of Enzo Maresca's substitutions, and I would like to give him some kudos in that he uses all 5 subs plus 1. 2 of those subs are academy kids, plus 2. Josh and Tyreek are young academy kids, but there is no reason you should not be seeing them in most of the games. 3, those subs played collectively over 100 minutes. I have said previously that if I was running a club, that would be a bonus for my head coach. As you clear 100 minutes in subs, you get money. And 4, I thought the Andre Santos for Malo Gusto sub was remarkably well timed and well thought out. And there's a few reasons for that. One, I thought Gusto was useful in the role he played, but he was already booked, and he was not that good. He was fine, but he was not that good. And two, I think once you go up 1-0, up a player, your risk profile skews towards we're fine, don't give them anything, and moving James back to right back and Andre Santos in midfield. And there were times where it was very much Andre Santos at right back and James still in midfield. If you look at the Estev goal, which we will talk about, he intercepts the ball jumping from right back, and James is in midfield to start that transition. But I thought Andre Santos had a fabulous, fabulous game against Burnley. He was maybe Chelsea's best player, and bringing that extra player in midfield to jump and bite and then be able to track and recover. We have seen very often when Chelsea go to the midfield three in big games, whether it's Lavia Enzo Caicedo or James Enzo Caicedo or whoever, that it's a tremendous amount of physical work because normally it's a very big game. And at some point it starts to fade, and all of us are collectively saying, okay, we need a sub, we need midfield legs, we need midfield legs. And he just brought them at halftime. And so you had Andre Santos spark plug the whole second half to go and go and go and go and go. And I thought that was really well timed, and I will give him his flowers for that. And then Liam Delap comes for Garnacho in the 60th minute. I thought Garnacho had actually quite a good game. It doesn't really turn up in the XG plus XA. He assists an Estev goal that is offside. And much of Chelsea's creation came from kind of different avenues, but I thought he was very good at pinning Koundé deep, which afforded space for other players. I thought he was quite useful, and I thought he actually did quite a good job helping Cucurella with Yamal in a defensive assignment. It was a quite mature performance from him. And I think mature is like the word that I really want to focus on, because again, you look at a team where Sanchez is the oldest player and your second oldest player is Chalobah, right? Yeah, I think Chalobah or Cucurella. You don't have a single player older than 28. Like, this is not a group who've been there, done that. For most of these players, Enzo Fernandez has won a World Cup. You have Chalobah, I guess, was in the squad for the Champions League, maybe. James was there. There's not a lot of guys who have been there, done that. So that sort of thing feels a little bit coming of age, which I think is quite nice. I think the other thing that is very fun to talk about, what also 35-9 box touches against Barcelona is fabulous. I think the other fun one to talk about is Chelsea absolutely destroyed Barcelona on set pieces. Destroyed. And the set pieces were so well done and so well planned. 0.5 to 0 is misleading because, again, Chelsea scored two set pieces that are disallowed for a handball and offside the offside is not narrowly offside, but the handball is fairly unfortunate. And the thing I thought was most interesting is it was not hanging it up for the big man at the back post. It was a lot of really clever short routines, one of which Garnacho gets a hockey assist for. He's the pass before the pass. And we have seen Chelsea set up the same routine. And if I'm gonna do it. I did not plan it on the tactics board beforehand, but I'll just open it up from the library as we do it and just show kind of what it looks like. So they set up a corner, and ignore the names here because I didn't set it up. But they set up a corner that looks like this, effectively, every single time. And they kind of set up all the guys in the box or whatever. And all the action is that when you play this player deep, the opposition cannot step their line right away because the player on the goal line has the ball. So now you can set up all sorts of movements to give this player time to come out. And by the time they play back and the line steps, the player who originally took the corner can run along the line and get a pass inside. This is exactly how Cucurella he plays a short corner to someone on the line. The ball comes back to Garnacho. Garnacho plays, boop, first time slip. And Cucurella is onside, again, exclusively because Barcelona are a little bit late stepping out. And you get the square and you get the great chance and blah, 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 blah. Chelsea have set up that routine a lot this season. But a lot of times what has happened is this player has gotten it and they just turned around. And I think one of the things I quite enjoyed about tonight was it was very deliberate. The other thing that I really liked, really liked, is from wide free kicks, Chelsea had Pedro Neto stand intentionally offside in the middle of the box. Why is that important? One, teams who play offside traps, particularly on dead balls, have very clear triggers for when to drop. And also, they generally work a lot on we drop and how do we pick people up? When are we dropping and how are we picking people up? And when you have someone who stands behind everybody offside, what can happen is twofold. One, they often just don't get picked up for the second phase, right? You can imagine a ball floated to the back post, everybody drops past that player, and they're completely unmarked in the middle of the box. The second is that you're dropping. This guy is completely offside, is not involved in the play at all. You're like, oh, I have to mark him because he's here. Or you're like, well, I don't know if to drop because he's offside. Or you stop because you're like, well, he's offside and everybody else is on. And I think it's one of those little things that Neto's not dangerous on most of these set pieces anyways, but he does immediately become a reference that disrupts their defensive marking on set pieces. And I thought that was a pretty clever wrinkle. And again, I tweet ironically after every single set piece goal that Chelsea score, where I say, why do we even have this pesky set piece coach? But again, Chelsea are just demolishing teams on set pieces most weeks. And Chelsea play Arsenal on the weekend, and now I don't think we're going to demolish Arsenal on set pieces, but I do think we can hang. I don't think we're quite at that table, but I think we can hang. I don't think we're out of that as a matter of fact. And again, I think there's a lot of things to consider with the red card, but again, I think Chelsea took their foot off the gas once they get the second goal. You see, they get the second goal and they stop attacking. So, well, actually, they get a tremendous amount of X threat after that, but it is what it is. Liam Delap gets his first goal for Chelsea, and I guess not the Club World Cup, so good for him. And the last player that I want to talk about in relation to this game, because it was a conversation in relation to the weekend where I guess now is probably as good a time as any to kind of flip over to that as it comes up. But I thought Enzo Fernandez was spectacular again. And it's now at a point with him where I don't even know what I want to open. It's now at a point with him where he is not the thing people want him to be. He is not the Toni Kroos. He is not the tempo control and sit deep and pass, play there. Like, I think he's actually the perfect representation that Maresca is probably not the coach we thought he was going to be, where I think one of the concerns that I had about Maresca in possession was that he would be overly prescriptive, that things would be very rigid in possession. And I don't think that's really turned out to be true. And I think part of how that's turned out to not be true is that he looked at Enzo Fernandez, a player that it would be very easy to talk yourself into, well, this guy's a fabulous passer. And I have also said, I want him much deeper on the ball, a lot more. And he looked at Enzo Fernandez, who, if we open up his last however many games, and again, because I'm a bad podcaster, I don't have it open, the guy is just a monster shot creator and monster shot getter for himself. Again, his last 5 league games, 0.8, 0.2, 0.5, 0.1, 0.3. There's 0.9 XA in there, 0.5 XA in there. 2 shots, 5 shots, 4 shots, 2 shots, all from midfield. Bananas. And it's like, you are actually the guy who gets in the box. And we are now looking across the season and however many games he's played. He is at something like 0.65, 0.68, puts up 0.65 again today. That is not a player who should be deeper. That's a player who should continue doing exactly what he's doing because it's tremendously valuable. And there were a lot of people on Twitter talking about, well, you look at the Wolves game. He was the deep tempo controller against the Wolves, and look how good it is. It's like, I don't care. Wolves have 2 points from 12 games. You could play Josh as a 6 on his own and you'd be fine in that game. It actually doesn't matter at all what happens in that game. Do I think against worse teams a way to up your risk profile is to move Enzo deeper? Yeah, 100%. Do I also think he's tremendously valuable in the role he's doing? Yeah. Yeah, I do. I think a good frame of reference for this is that I have not thought about how much he cost even once for like 18 months. He is really, really, really good. Really good. And another assist today. I thought the decision to square for Delap is like the decision to square for Delap on Delap's goal is the kind of maximizing XG maximizing decision when a team gets in a real good place, because there's a lot of times that he would be very well within his rights to just take the finish on himself, and instead it's just like, yep, flat pat, boom, tap in, great goal, move on with my life. And I thought it was just very, very mature. Who else? Esteval. This guy's bananas. I don't know. I feel like I'm being hyperbolic every time I talk about him at this point, because the things he does are just stupid. The amount of times in this game, and again, bear with me that the players are not the right players, but I don't really care. The amount of times that he received the ball on the touchline with Balde in his asshole, like inside of it, and I don't even know who is the left 8. Frankie on top of him, and Ferran Torres coming back. The amount of times that he received in this situation, facing his own goal, and turned this into a player facing forward dribbling at the back line, or a through ball for Neto, or a touch inside for Gusto, or a pass inside for James, is just not, it's just not things that I thought we were going to get at this point. The goal, and again, I haven't even spoken about the goal, which is just a joke. The goal reminded me so much of Hazard versus Liverpool in a weird way, where it's not the same finish and he doesn't quite create the same separation, but it's almost cleaner because he's so tight. He abuses Cubarsí, who I think is a quite nice player. Again, 18-year-old starting most games for Barcelona. The kid can ball. Abuses him and then roofs it with his right foot from a terrible angle. And again, against one of the best teams in the world, in a game where I did not think he played amazing, he puts up half an expected goal plus an expected assist. Like, I don't know, every week, man, he does things that I just think are simply like not viable for a footballer. And I said before the season, when I was doing my projections for Chelsea and my projections for him, that I just had no idea how to handle him specifically, where he was producing at a level in Brazil that we did not have comps for. Right? Like I ended up using guys like Reinier and Gabriel Jesus and Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo, because they were guys I had data for, and they were guys that had a really good production level in Brazil and were in the same age cohort, right? They were 17, 18, 19 when they moved. But really the only guy we ever had and I didn't have data for, that was even close to that level was Neymar. And Neymar was so much older when he moved to Barcelona that we just didn't have it. Again, we're talking 652 minutes across Champions League and Premier League, 99th percentile XG, 97th percentile XA, 98th percentile XG plus XA, 77th percentile shot creating actions, 83rd percentile prog carries, 99th percentile successful take-ons, 97th percentile box touches, 87th percentile progressive passes received. And the thing that has surprised me more than anything is the kid works his bollocks off defensively. 85th percentile, 75th percentile for defensive actions. The kid is grafting. And again, I'm really happy with how Chelsea have managed his introduction to moving to a new country and new weather and playing in a much, much, much higher level. And I love that they're taking it slow. And I would bet a lot of money that he doesn't start against Arsenal. And I think that's okay. I think that's okay if they're like, yeah, you just played 90 here and then you come off the bench when we need you in this game and blah, blah, blah. I think that's a totally mature and professional way to approach it. But the things he's doing are, again, I think I projected 6 goals and assists in 15 90s. He has 5 already in 7 90s. So, great prediction there, Kieran. But I think, again, he's doing things that are beyond our wildest dreams. I don't even think the most aggressive Estev stan could have predicted he'd be as good as he's been so far. So that's when I don't know, we're all keeping my eye on. I can't take my eyes off the television when I watch him. He's ridiculous. The other match to talk about in this cohort of matches is that Chelsea smashed Burnley. I say smashed. It was 2-0. They're Burnley. That's not a smashing. I thought Chelsea were just okay in this one. The first half was fairly tame, with the exception of a quite nice goal by Pedro Neto, a diving header at the back post created by Jamie Gittins on a little in-swinging cross that Chelsea created off of a direct pass to Marc Cucurella. Enzo Fernandez, Enzo Maresca talked about how he was expecting Burnley to defend in a back 5, and they were actually in a back 4, and how it took them 20 minutes to kind of sort the tweak out. If you go back and watch and look at the build-up, it was Chelsea's usual thing against a back 5 where they go like 3 diamond 3-ish, and they load the last line with 6. And Burnley went a pretty tight 4-3-3 block and kind of marked those 3 players out of the game with a really tight midfield 3. And after 25 minutes, Chelsea were like, okay, we'll just do the 2-3-5 thing that we do against 4-3-3s, and they just wrecked them from that point on. Neto scores, and then in the second half, Burnley get truly very little, while Chelsea get one huge chance for Enzo Fernandez and not that much else, but they were very, very comfortable in this game, I felt. The most noteworthy things to me in this game were, one, that it's the first time that Tosin and Chalobah looked okay together, I thought. And 2, that I thought Sanchez was, again, quite calm, aside from nearly taking Enzo Fernandez's head off. Enzo Fernandez scores again, a lung-busting run for a cutback. Again, if you can get a guy who's going to give you 0.8 XG plus XA every game, you're going to take it. Andre Santos, we already spoke about, was fabulous in this game. Really, really good deputy for Caicedo, who didn't have to play, which is really nice, which enables today's performance. But the guy that I want to flag is that Waheyyyyy came off the bench and was really useful. He creates a huge goal, totally by himself. He busts his ass to chase and close people down. In the 96th minute of a game, Chelsea are up 2-0, in the corner flag, all like literally as far from Chelsea's goal as you can be, he is sprinting to slide tackle and block a long ball. That's really useful to have. And no, he is not the smooth Barcelona Academy prospect. Like he is weirdly very similar to Armando Broja, like pre-knee Armando Broja, where he's just rough and tumble, run the channels, press and be an asshole. I think that's a weirdly good comp for him. And I like it. And it was really, really useful. So where does that leave Chelsea? Well, in an interesting place. One, the XGD is, again, a little bit behind last year, which is fine. That's not a huge deal. I think, I imagine if I open this up, it's actually probably a little bit more now. Anyways, that's fine. Their goal difference is identical through the same 12 matches last year. Their XG is a little bit behind, mostly a function of the red cards. Their XGA is a little bit ahead. Imagine without the red cards. Shot for, volume down, mostly red cards. Shots against, down. Box touches, definitely still down. Box touches for, a little bit down as well. And I think when you look at the Premier League, and we talked about this kind of on the the podcast from last week, there Chelsea are very clearly in a tier with City and Arsenal, separate from everybody else, I think, based on the underlyings. Dimitri had a tweet today that was something like, the Premier League is 3 legit teams, 1 legit team who are playing badly but will probably figure it out, Crystal Palace, and then everybody else. And I think that is a very apt description where Chelsea, Arsenal, and City are clear. After I made my comment about the betting markets and Opta being fairly slow to adapt, like Opta had Chelsea up to 50% in their prediction table. The betting markets were up to 50% in their prediction table. The betting markets were up to like 67% when I looked yesterday. It's probably higher now that United lost as well. And like, I think people are starting to catch on, and the data is starting to catch on that no, this Chelsea team is actually pretty good, particularly when you factor in they've done all this without Cole Palmer, who started training with the first team yesterday. So like, presumably not that far away. I think this team is probably quite good. And I think the nice thing for Chelsea, at least from a points perspective, is Villa are not that good. They are running pretty hot. They beat Brentford 2-1 in a game they should probably lose 2-1. City are extremely reliant on Haaland, so if he goes down, they're toast. Palace are good, but you've already played them once. And then it's your Brightons, your Bournemouths, your Uniteds, and a bunch of teams who are probably just not there for top 4, and you have Spurs who I thought would be much better before the season have honked, frankly. So we're in a pretty good spot. Chelsea play Arsenal on Sunday. Arsenal are, in my opinion, very clearly the best team in the league. They are 3rd by XG4. They are the best team by XGA by over 50%, which is an insane statistic through 12 games. That they are at a 0.5 XGA team is like, that is up there with the hottest stretches by the best Tuchel teams, which is pretty nuts. I think one of the things that's interesting about this team is you look at their season, and first off, that's a lot of wins and a lot of really strong results. But I think the things that stand out the most to me is the teams they have struggled the most with. So United, they play even and win. Liverpool, they play even and lose. City, they play even and draw. Palace, they play even and win. The thing that stands out the most to me from all of those games is that the teams they've had the most trouble with are the teams who really press. Palace, United, Liverpool, and have like a requisite amount of quality. Leeds suck. Liverpool, United, City, and Palace are all pretty strong defensive mid-block or higher teams. They have really broken the door down on teams who tried to defend deeper on them, who just gets nothing going the other way. I don't want to say I fancy Chelsea stylistically, because I think Arsenal are still probably a little bit better than Chelsea. But I think it will be a real game. I don't think Chelsea will shy away from this. And they play Bayern today, which is a game that matters for them. It probably matters less than the Chelsea game, given that they're 4-0 in the Champions League table, and they will probably win. They will probably come top 8 no matter what, even if they lose to Bayern. But I think this is a game that I am and I said at the beginning of the episode, so this is probably a good place to finish us off. I am deeply, deeply excited to watch. It is a game where Arsenal are really good. They have a very good coach. They play in maybe not the most aesthetically pleasing style, but they play in a way that I think is difficult to play against. And I also think Chelsea will probably rock up and say, like, we can play this game. And that I think is going to be very, very fun. In terms of lineups, before we get out of here, I think you will see some differences. I think João Pedro will come back into the starting 11 for this game. I think you will see Reece James go back to right back. And I think you will see Andre Santos come in for Gusto. And I think you will see Gittins and Neto as your wingers. So Cucurella, Chalobah, Fofana. Fofana maybe comes out for Tosin for set pieces, which is a thing that I would not do, but I can see Enzo Maresca doing. But maybe it's Betty Chile. I would be pretty into that. And I think he has liked the look that Betty Chile has given them on the left of the three. And I think stylistically having Betty Chile, Chalobah, James as a back three is much, much, much more difficult to press than any other formation of Chelsea's back three. And I think João Pedro gives you a meaningful physical presence to hold the ball up, and I think you get fresh legs for the wingers and all sorts of things. We'll see. I'm excited. There will be a stream probably right after that game. So I'll see you then. As always, enjoy the soccer.